Subscribe to Infidelity Tales Lab for more stories. Now, let's begin this one. Chapter 1. The Dark. The December cold hit Damian Davis like a blade the moment he stepped off the military transport. 48 hours earlier, he'd been coordinating tactical operations in Stuttgart. Now he was standing in his hometown of Millbrook, Connecticut with a duffel bag and the kind of bone-deep exhaustion that came from 3 consecutive deployments as an Army intelligence officer. The house looked wrong from the street. No Christmas lights. No wreath on the door. The windows were dark at 6 p.m. on Christmas Eve, and his mother's car sat in the driveway, covered in 3 days of undisturbed snow. Damian's training kicked in before conscious thought, cataloging details, assessing threats, calculating possibilities. He tried his key. It still worked. The house was cold. Not just unheated, but deliberately cold, like someone had turned the thermostat down to 50 degrees. The Christmas tree his mother always insisted on decorating by December 1st was absent. The living room looked staged, furniture arranged but lifeless. A thin layer of dust on a coffee table. "Mom," his voice echoed. Nothing. Damian moved through the house with tactical precision, checking rooms, noting details. The kitchen was clean but empty. Refrigerator running, but nearly bare. Upstairs bedrooms, undisturbed. His old room exactly as he'd left it 3 years ago. Then he heard it, a soft sound from below. The basement. The door was closed but unlocked. Damian descended slowly, one hand instinctively near his service weapon. The basement lights were off, but pale winter moonlight filtered through the high windows, illuminating a figure sitting motionless in his father's old recliner. "Mom!" Christy Davis turned her head slowly, and Damian's blood froze. His mother had aged a decade since his last video call 2 months ago. Her face was gaunt, eyes hollow, hair unwashed. She wore the same cardigan she'd worn in that call, now stained and wrinkled. But when she saw him, something sparked in those dead eyes. "Damian." Her voice was paper-thin. "Did you bring your service weapon?" He knelt beside her, professional composure cracking. "Mom, what happened? How long have you been down here?" 3 days. Maybe 4. "I lose track when it's dark." She said it matter-of-factly, like discussing the weather. "There's a note." Kitchen table. Damian took the stairs 3 at a time. The note was brief, written in his stepfather's blocky handwriting. "Took the family on a Christmas cruise. Caribbean. Back mid-January. Don't call. No cell service on the ship. Make yourself useful and clean out the basement. Howard." The family. Not we. Not, "Your mother isn't feeling well." Just the family. His stepfather, Howard Harrell. His stepbrother, Kirk Fry. Kirk's wife, Lindsay Fry, née Giles. Howard's sister, Patty Harrell, who'd kept her maiden name after her divorce. Even his half-sister, Jana Harrell, who was only 19. They'd gone on a cruise. Left his mother, their mother, in the basement. In the dark. For Christmas. Damian pulled out his phone with shaking hands. The screen showed 247 deleted messages, all recovered from his backup server, a military-grade encryption system he'd set up for family communications. Someone had accessed his mother's phone and deleted every text she'd sent him over the past 3 months. He scrolled through them with mounting rage. November 3rd. "Howard says I'm being dramatic about the medication. Maybe he's right." November 10th. "They had a meeting about me today. I heard them through the floor. Something about expediting the process." November 18th. "Damian, I'm scared. They took my checkbook. Howard says it's for my own good." November 24th. "Kirk brought papers. Wanted me to sign. I said no. He got angry." December 8th. "Please call. They're talking about a facility." December 15th. "I can't find my phone charger. I think they hid it." December 20th. "They're leaving tomorrow. Howard says I need to reflect on my behavior. The basement door locks from the outside now." December 21st. "Cold down here. So cold." The messages stopped December 22nd. 3 days ago. Damian stood in the kitchen, phone gripped, so tight his knuckles were white, every muscle in his body coiled like a spring. He'd spent 15 years learning how to stay calm under pressure, how to compartmentalize, how to think strategically even when the world was exploding around him. That training was the only thing keeping him from putting his fist through the wall. He went back to the basement. His mother hadn't moved, still sitting in the dark like she'd learned that was safest. "Mom, I'm taking you out of here. Right now. We're gonna get you checked out, get you warm, get you fed." "They'll be angry," she whispered. "I don't give a damn what they'll be." "Damien," she reached out, gripped his hand with surprising strength. "Did you bring your service weapon?" "Yes." For the first time in 3 days, Christy Davis smiled. "Good, because when they come back, you're going to need it." Chapter 2. The Evidence. The Mountain View Hospital ER doctor was thorough and increasingly concerned. Damien watched through the examination room window as Dr. Aurelio Wiggins checked his mother's vitals, shining lights in her eyes, asking questions in that careful tone medical professionals used when they suspected abuse. "Dehydration," Dr. Wiggins said when he emerged. "Mild hypothermia. Some bruising on her upper arms, consistent with being grabbed. Malnutrition. Looks like she's been underfed for weeks, maybe months. And these," he showed Damien a talk screen. "She's been given haloperidol. It's an antipsychotic. Strong one. Was she prescribed this?" "Not to my knowledge. She says she wasn't. Says someone was putting it in her food." Dr. Wiggins met his eyes. "Mr. Davis, I'm a mandatory reporter. This looks like elder abuse." "File the report," Damien said coldly. "I'll be filing several of my own." While his mother slept in a warm hospital bed, Damien drove back to the house. This time he wasn't visiting. He was conducting an operation. His training as an Army intelligence officer had taught him how to extract information from hostile environments. He'd learned from the best interrogators, hackers, analysts who could piece together conspiracies from digital breadcrumbs. Now he turned those skills on his own family. Howard Harrell's home office was locked, but Damien had learned lockpicking in Ranger School. Inside, he found a filing cabinet full of documents, financial records, legal papers, and a folder labeled Christie Conservatorship. Damien photographed everything with his phone, uploading to an encrypted cloud server as he went. The picture emerged quickly. Howard had been systematically isolating his mother for 6 months, ever since Damien's deployment to Germany. First, he convinced her regular doctor to retire early, a payoff based on the bank records Damien found. The new doctor, a hack named Fernando Townsend, had prescribed increasingly heavy medications for anxiety and confusion. Then came the financial moves. Howard had slowly drained his mother's accounts, the inheritance from Damien's father, her teaching pension, even her savings. Transfers to offshore accounts, loans to Kirk, investments that went nowhere. But the real payload was in Howard's email, which he'd stupidly saved passwords for in a notebook. Subject, the plan, timeline from Howard Harrell to Kirk Fry, Patty Harrell. The cruise gives us 3 weeks. By the time we're back, Christy will have had an episode. We document everything. Fernando will testify she's incompetent. Damien's overseas. He can't intervene. We get the conservatorship approved, move her into Shady Pines, sell the house. 3-way split after expenses. Should clear $400,000 each once everything's liquidated. Kirk, make sure your wife stays quiet. She's getting cold feet. Patty, you handle the realtor. I want the listing live by January 15th. This works if we all stick to the script. Christie's breakdown over the holidays. Missing. We find her somewhere embarrassing. Police report. Medical evaluation. Done. One problem, Damien. If he comes home early, we're screwed. Keep monitoring his deployment status. If he gets leave, we delay the cruise. H. Damien read it 3 times, committing every word to memory. Then he kept digging. He found emails between Kirk and Howard discussing how to trigger episodes in his mother. Withholding food. Gaslighting. Kirk had researched drugs online, found combinations that would cause confusion and memory loss without obvious physical symptoms. He found texts between Patty and Howard about how to forge his mother's signature on documents. He found videos. Kirk had installed hidden cameras throughout the house for documentation. But what they'd actually documented was abuse. Howard shoving his mother against a wall. Kirk blocking her from leaving a room, shouting in her face. Patty rifling through her purse, taking credit cards. And Jana, his 19-year-old half-sister, watching it all happen. Sometimes looking uncomfortable, sometimes looking away, but never intervening. The family, the ones who'd gone on a cruise while his mother sat in the dark. Damien's phone rang. Unknown number. Mr. Davis? This is Marcelo Rivers, Millbrook Police Department. We've received a complaint from a Dr. Wiggins about a possible elder abuse situation. We'd like to ask you some questions. I'll do you one better, detective. I'll give you evidence for a prosecution. Chapter 3. The Strategy. Detective Marcelo Rivers was a 20-year veteran with the Millbrook PD, and he'd seen a lot of ugly things. But even he looked disturbed as Damien walked him through the evidence spread across the dining room table. This is comprehensive, Rivers said carefully. You compiled all this in 6 hours. I'm an intelligence officer. It's what I do. Some of this might not be admissible. Breaking into the office, accessing private emails. I didn't break in. I have a key. I'm listed on the house deed. Something Howard forgot when he married my mother. And the emails were accessed from a device on the home network, which I have legal right to use. Damien had already thought through the legal angles. Everything here is clean enough for probable cause. You can get warrants for the rest. Rivers nodded slowly. What about your mother? Will she testify? She will, once she's stronger. And you? This had to be. Rivers paused, choosing words. Personal. Damien looked at him with eyes that had seen combat, had seen friends die, had learned to compartmentalize horror. They drugged my mother, starved her, left her in the dark like garbage. Then they went on a cruise. With her money. So you want them arrested? Eventually. Rivers frowned. Eventually. They're coming back January 15th. That gives us 3 weeks. Damien pulled up a calendar. Here's what I propose. We document everything. Get my mother's testimony on record. Get medical evidence. Build an airtight case. But we don't move on them yet. Why not? Because arrest is too clean. Too quick. Damien leaned forward. They planned this for months. Systematically destroyed my mother's life. They deserve to understand what's coming before it hits. Mr. Davis, I'm not talking about vigilante justice, detective. I'm talking about letting them come home. Let them think they got away with it. Let them start executing the next phase. Moving my mother, selling the house, splitting the money. And then we take them down with everything at once. Criminal charges, civil suits, social destruction. I want them to lose everything they thought they'd won. Rivers studied him. You're asking me to delay an arrest to make the revenge more satisfying. I'm asking you to build the strongest possible case. Give them enough rope to hang themselves. And ensure they can never do this to anyone else. Damien slid a document across the table. This is from my mother's estate lawyer. Yes, she has one. And no, Howard doesn't know. If anything happens to my mother under suspicious circumstances, I inherit everything. The house, her pension, all of it. Howard gets nothing. He doesn't know. My father made sure of it before he died. Didn't trust Howard even then. Turns out Dad was a good judge of character. Damien's smile was cold. So if Howard's plan succeeds, if my mother dies or is declared incompetent, he still gets nothing. But he doesn't know that. He thinks he's won. Rivers was quiet for a long moment. Then, what's your plan? I need 2 weeks to set things up. Get my mother safe. Secure evidence. Contact the state attorney general. This isn't the first time Howard's done something like this. I did some digging. His first wife died under mysterious circumstances. No investigation because he was friends with the local cops. Jesus. I'm also going to find out why Kirk and Patty went along with this. What they get out of it. What leverage Howard has. Damien pulled up more files. Kirk's in debt. Gambling problem. Patty's business is failing. Howard's been funding them both with my mother's money. They're accomplices because they're desperate and greedy. And the sister? Jana. Damien's expression darkened. That's the question. She's 19. Technically an adult, but she grew up with Howard as her father. She might be a victim too. Or she might be complicit. I need to find out. How? By talking to her. Alone. Before the others get back. He showed Rivers a document. Jana's enrolled at Millbrook Community College. Spring semester starts January 3rd. She's staying with a friend off campus. I'm going to visit her. And say what? That she has a choice. Come clean about what she knew, and when she knew it, cooperate with the investigation, and maybe she gets a future. or stay loyal to Howard and Kirk and go down with them when the hammer falls. Rivers gathered the documents. I'll talk to my captain. Get the warrant process started. But Davis? Don't do anything stupid. I know you're angry, and you have every right to be. But if you cross a line, I can't protect you. I don't need protection, detective. I need justice. After Rivers left, Damien sat alone in the house where he'd grown up. The house where his real father had raised him before cancer took him when Damien was 16. The house where his mother had tried to build a new life with Howard Harrell, not knowing she was inviting a parasite into her home. He pulled up the cruise itinerary he'd found in Howard's desk. They were in Grand Cayman right now, probably drinking expensive cocktails on his mother's money, laughing about how easy it had been. Damien opened his laptop and began typing. First, an email to his commanding officer requesting family emergency leave, approved within an hour, with condolences and an offer of support. Second, a message to his buddy Dane Larson, now working as a private investigator in New York. Third, a call to his mother's estate lawyer, a sharp woman named Opal Hayden who'd been waiting 15 years for Howard to make a mistake like this. "Mr. Davis," she said when she answered. "I wondered when you'd call. You knew. Your mother contacted me 6 weeks ago. Said she was worried about Howard, about what he might do if she became ill. I advised her to get out, file for divorce. She said she couldn't, that he'd threatened her, said she'd never see Jana again if she left. He was holding her daughter hostage. Emotionally, yes. That's Howard's specialty. Manipulation. Control. Your father saw it immediately, which is why he made me draw up those protections." Opal's voice hardened. "I'm ready to help however you need. Howard Harrell has been skating by on charm and connections for 20 years. Time someone knocked him down. I need everything you have on him. Every detail. Every past lawsuit. Every complaint. Every skeleton. Already compiled. Sending it now." The file arrived. 847 pages of Howard's history. Failed businesses. Angry creditors. A restraining order from his first wife's family, dropped after her death. Allegations of fraud that mysteriously disappeared. A pattern of targeting wealthy widows, marrying them, isolating them, and emerging richer when the relationships ended. Damien's mother was just the latest victim, but she'd be the last. Because Damien had learned something in the army that Howard had never considered. How to turn an enemy's plan against them. How to let them think they were winning right up until the moment they lost everything. Howard wanted to destroy his mother and take everything she had. Damien was going to let him try. And then he was going to destroy Howard. Chapter 4. The Sister. Jana Harrell lived in a cramped apartment above a pizza shop near the community college. Damien watched from across the street for 20 minutes before approaching, noting her routines, her friends, few, her demeanor, nervous, constantly checking her phone. When he knocked, she answered with the door chain still attached. "Damien." She didn't sound surprised. "Dad said you might show up. Did he also tell you what he did to my mother?" She bit her lip, eyes darting away. "He said she had a breakdown, that she needed space, that you'd be angry because you don't understand." "Jana, stop." Damien kept his voice gentle but firm. "I know what happened. I've seen the evidence. The question is, how much do you know?" I wasn't. There are cameras in the house. I've seen the footage. I know you were there when Kirk and Howard planned this. I know you watched them drug her, isolate her, steal from her." He paused. "What I don't know is whether you helped or whether you were just too scared to stop it." Jana's face crumbled. She was 19, looked 16, and suddenly she wasn't a potential conspirator, but a terrified kid. "I tried to tell Mom it was wrong. After you left for Germany, Dad started changing, getting meaner. He'd say things about Mom when she wasn't around. Call her stupid, say she was forgetting things. But she wasn't. He was messing with her head. Did you know about the drugs?" "Not first. Then I found pills in the kitchen. Looked them up. Confronted Dad." She wrapped her arms around herself. "He told me if I said anything, he'd make sure I never got to college. That Mom would end up in a home anyway, and I'd lose my only family. That Kirk would back him up, and I'd be the one who looked crazy. So you stayed quiet. What else could I do? I'm 19. I don't have money. I don't have anywhere to go. You could have called me. Dad blocked your number on my phone. I tried to text you from friend's phone, but I didn't know what to say. I was scared it would make things worse. Tears streamed down her face. When they said we were going on the cruise, I knew it was wrong. I told Dad I didn't want to go. He said if I stayed, he'd assume I was planning to betray him. That when he got back, I'd find myself on the street. Damien stepped inside, closed the door. Jana, listen carefully. Howard and Kirk are going to prison. Patty too. The evidence is overwhelming. You're at a crossroads. You could tell the truth, all of it, and cooperate with the police. Or you could stay loyal to Howard and go down as an accomplice. I never hurt Mom. I swear. But you didn't stop it. Legally, that might still make you culpable. You watch her process this. However, if you cooperate fully, testify about what you saw, what you heard, everything, the DA might offer immunity. You'd be a witness instead of a defendant. What do I have to do? First, write down everything. Every conversation you heard, every time you saw them hurt her, every detail. Detective Rivers will need your statement. Second, don't warn Howard. Don't call, don't text. He thinks you're still on his side. Let him keep thinking that. What happens when he finds out? He'll be in jail. Can't touch you there. Jana wiped her eyes. And Mom? Is she okay? She will be. No thanks to you. Damien let that sink in. You're getting a second chance, Jana. Most people don't. Don't waste it. Over the next 3 hours, Jana told him everything. The slow escalation of Howard's abuse. Kirk's gambling debts and desperation. Patty's failed business and bitter resentment. The family meetings where they discussed handling Christy. The moment Jana realized they were going to abandon her in the basement. I didn't know until we were at the airport, Jana said. Kirk made a joke about Mom having 3 days to think about her attitude. I asked what he meant. Howard told me to shut up and get on the plane. When I tried to leave to go back, he grabbed my arm so hard I thought he'd break it. Said if I ruined this for him, he'd ruin me. Damien recorded everything on his phone. Then he called Detective Rivers. We have a cooperating witness, he said. Chapter 5, The Return. January 15th arrived cold and clear. Damien stood in the kitchen of his mother's house, his house now, legally, though Howard didn't know that yet, and watched the driveway. The past 3 weeks had been busy. His mother was recovering in a private care facility, the kind with actual nurses and therapy, not a warehouse for abandoned elderly. Dr. Wiggins had referred her to specialists who detoxed her from the drugs, treated the malnutrition, and started trauma therapy. She was getting stronger every day. Detective Rivers had secured warrants for everything. Howard's finances, Kirk's communications, Patty's business records. The state attorney general's office had gotten involved, interested in potential elder abuse charges that could set legal precedents. And Damien had been planning. The cruise ship had docked in Miami that morning. Based on their flight itinerary, Howard and the others would arrive home by 3 p.m. Damien had made sure the house looked exactly as they'd left it, except for one thing. The basement door was open. At 3:17 p.m., a rental car pulled into the driveway. Damien watched from the kitchen window as Howard emerged first, tanned and relaxed, laughing at something. Kirk followed, carrying luggage. Patty, Lindsay. They looked happy, victorious. They thought they'd won. Howard entered first, calling out, Christy? We're home. Silence. His smile faltered. Christy. Damien stepped into view. She's not here. Howard froze. Damien. When did you get back? Christmas Eve. Damien leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed. Found something interesting. Want to guess what? Kirk appeared behind Howard, eyes narrowing. Where's Mom? Safe. Which is more than I can say for you. Watch your tone, Howard said, trying to summon authority. This is my house. Actually, it's not. Damien pulled out a document. It's mine. Has been since my father died. He put in trust for me, with my mother having lifetime residence. You never owned anything here, Howard. You just lived in it. Howard's tan darkened. That's not. Your mother said. My mother believed what you told her because she trusted you. Mistake. Damien straightened. But let's talk about your mistakes. Like planning to have her declared incompetent. Like drugging her. Like embezzling her money. Like leaving her in the basement for 3 days while you went on a cruise. Dead silence. I don't know what she told you, Howard said carefully. But your mother hasn't been well. We were trying to help. Save it. I've seen the emails. The financial records. The videos from your hidden cameras. Damien smiled without warmth. You documented everything, Kirk. Very helpful. Kirk's face went pale. You broke into. I exercised my legal right to access my own property, and I found evidence of multiple felonies. Damien pulled out his phone. Detective Rivers? They're here. 2 police cars pulled up outside, lights flashing. Detective Rivers and 3 officers emerged, all business. Howard Harrell, Kirk Fry, Patty Harrell. You're under arrest for elder abuse, financial exploitation, false imprisonment, and conspiracy to commit fraud. The next few minutes were chaos. Howard shouting about lawyers. Kirk trying to run, getting tackled in the front yard. Patty crying, begging, claiming she didn't know. Lindsay screaming at Kirk, finally understanding what her husband had done. Damien watched it all with cold satisfaction. As the officers led them away in handcuffs, Howard locked eyes with him. You sanctimonious little. This isn't over. I'll fight this. I'll prove your mother is incompetent, that you coerced her, that. You'll prove nothing, Damien said quietly. Because I'm not done with you yet. Chapter 6, The Unraveling. The arraignment made the local news. Local businessmen and family members charged an elder abuse case. Millbrook was a small town. Everyone knew everyone. By the next morning, Howard's reputation was destroyed. But Damien wasn't satisfied. Arrest was just the first move. He met with Opal Hayden, the estate lawyer, in her downtown office. She had the look of a shark that had just spotted blood in the water. The criminal charges are solid, she said, spreading documents across her desk. But you want more. I want everything. Every dollar they stole. Every asset they own. Every bit of damage they did, repaid in full. Civil suits will take time. Years, potentially. I have time. Opal smiled. Then let's begin. First, your mother's medical bills, substantial. We'll sue for those, plus pain and suffering. That's a few million right there. Second, the stolen money. I've traced it through the offshore accounts. We can claw most of it back. Third, Kirk's house. Turns out it was purchased partially with your mother's money. We can force a sale, recover the funds. What about Howard's business? Now that's interesting. She pulled up financial records. Howard Harrell Consulting. He presents himself as a legitimate business advisor, but I've found a pattern. He targets businesses run by elderly owners, offers to help them, then systematically loots them. He's done it at least 6 times in the past 15 years. Can we prove it? Some of it. Enough to file additional fraud charges. But more importantly, we can contact his victims. Build a class action. Between your mother and the others, we can bankrupt him completely. Damien leaned back. What about prison time? Elder abuse in Connecticut can carry up to 20 years. Financial exploitation, another 10. Conspiracy, false imprisonment, they're looking at serious time. Especially Howard. He's the ringleader. And Kirk? He'll try to make a deal. Blame everything on Howard. Claim he was coerced. But we have emails showing he researched the drugs himself. He's culpable. Patty. She'll flip first. Already has, actually. Her lawyer contacted me this morning. She wants to cooperate in exchange for reduced charges. Damien nodded slowly. Make sure Patty understands she doesn't get to walk away clean. She watched this happen. She helped. She doesn't get redemption without pain. Over the next week, the case evolved. Patty's cooperation revealed even more. How Howard had done this before. How he'd coached Kirk and Patty on manipulation tactics. How he'd specifically targeted Christy because she was soft and easy to control. But there was a problem. Howard had hired an expensive criminal defense attorney, a man named Harlan Blevins, who was known for getting wealthy clients off on technicalities. Blevins was arguing that Christy was genuinely incompetent, that Howard had been acting in good faith, that the family had simply disagreed about her care. He's going to put your mother on trial, Rivers warned Damien. Make her look confused, unreliable. Suggest she's misremembering events because of her medication. Can he do that? If he gets a sympathetic jury, maybe. Elder abuse cases are hard to prosecute because the victim is often seen as unreliable. Damien felt rage building again. So Howard might walk? Not walk, but he might get reduced charges. A few years instead of 20. Unacceptable. That night, Damien called Dane Larson, his buddy who'd become a private investigator. I need you to dig into Harlan Blevins. Everything. Cases, clients, methods. And I need you to investigate Howard's first wife's death. The one that was never properly investigated. You think Howard killed her? I think he's capable of anything. And I think if we can prove he's done this before, that this is a pattern, not a misunderstanding, no jury will let him walk. Dane called back 3 days later. Found something. Howard's first wife, Gertrude Harrell, died of a heart attack at 53. No autopsy. Howard insisted on cremation immediately, said it was her wish. But I talked to her sister, who's been suspicious for 20 years. She says Gertrude was about to file for divorce, had contacted a lawyer, documented Howard's abuse, had started moving money into separate accounts. And then she died. Conveniently. And here's the kicker. Gertrude's symptoms before death match what your mother experienced. Confusion, weakness, memory loss. The sister thinks Howard was poisoning her. Can we prove it? Not directly. She was cremated. But I found the lawyer Gertrude was working with. He's retired now, but he kept his files. Gertrude documented everything. The abuse, the financial manipulation, the threats. It's Howard's playbook, 20 years ago. Send me everything. Damien met with Detective Rivers and the assistant DA handling the case, a tough woman named Erica Wilkins. He laid out the evidence about Gertrude. This changes things, Wilkins said slowly. If we can establish a pattern, that Howard has done this before, possibly escalating to murder, the judge might allow it as evidence of criminal intent. It makes the current charges much more serious. Can you reopen the investigation into Gertrude's death? I can request it, but without a body, it's circumstantial. Circumstantial is better than nothing, especially if the jury hears that Howard's first wife mysteriously died right before she could divorce him, and now his second wife nearly died after he tried to have her committed. Wilkins smiled grimly. I'll make it work. Chapter 7, The Trial. The trial of Howard Harrell began in late March. The courtroom was packed. Local media, curious townspeople, and several of Howard's previous business clients who'd come to watch him finally face consequences. Damien sat in the front row behind the prosecution, his mother beside him. Christy Davis had recovered remarkably in the past 3 months. She'd gained weight, color had returned to her face, and the fog from the drugs had lifted. She was sharp, clear, and angry. I'm ready, she told him before court. I'm ready to tell them everything. The prosecution's case was methodical. Detective Rivers testified about finding Christy in the basement. Dr. Wiggins described her condition, the evidence of drugging and malnutrition. Forensic accountants traced the stolen money through offshore accounts. But the most damaging testimony came from Jana. She took the stand wearing a simple dress, looking young and nervous. But when she spoke, her voice was steady. My father, Howard, started talking about getting rid of Christy about a year ago, she said. At first I thought he meant divorce. Then he explained his plan. Make her seem crazy. Drug her so she'd be confused. Get her declared incompetent. Take her money. Put her in a home. Did you try to stop him? Asked D.A. Wilkins. Yes. I told him it was wrong. He told me I was naive. That Christy was dead weight, and we deserve her money more than she did. That she'd be happier in a facility anyway. Jana's voice shook. I should have done more. I should have called the police, or Damien, or someone. I was scared, but that's not an excuse. I let them hurt her. What happened when the family went on the cruise? I didn't know they were leaving her in the basement until we were at the airport. Kirk made a joke about it. When I tried to go back, Howard grabbed me, threatened me, said if I ruined his plan, he'd make sure I had nothing. No college, no family, nothing. So I got on the plane. Howard's attorney, Blevins, cross-examined her aggressively. Isn't it true you're testifying in exchange for immunity? That you're throwing your father under the bus to save yourself? No, I'm testifying because what we did was evil, and I can't live with myself if I don't tell the truth. Jana looked at Howard directly. He's not my father. My father wouldn't drug an innocent woman and leave her to die in the dark. The courtroom was silent. Kirk took the stand next, having accepted a plea deal to testify against Howard. He described the planning, the research into drugs, the cameras installed to document Christie's deterioration. Whose idea was the cruise? Wilkins asked. Howard's. He said we needed an alibi. If we were out of the country, we couldn't be blamed for whatever happened to Christie. If she died in that basement, it would look like an accident. If she didn't, she'd be so traumatized that having her declared incompetent would be easy. Did he actually say he wanted her to die? Kirk hesitated. Not directly, but he asked me how cold the basement got. How long someone could survive down there without food and water. He was calculating it. The jury looked horrified, but Blevins fought hard. He brought in his own experts who testified that Christie had genuine cognitive issues, that Howard had acted out of concern rather than malice, that the family dynamics were complicated. Then the prosecution brought in its surprise witness, Gertrude Harrell's sister, Nita Gilmore. My sister was afraid of Howard, Nita testified. In the months before she died, she told me he was controlling every aspect of her life. Her money, her friends, her medication. She said he was poisoning her. I thought she was being paranoid. Then she died. Did you report your suspicions? I tried. The police said there was no evidence. Howard had her cremated before I could demand an autopsy. He told everyone she'd wanted it that way, but that was a lie. Gertrude wanted to be buried next to her parents. Blevins objected, argued the testimony was irrelevant and prejudicial. The judge allowed it, noting that evidence of prior bad acts was relevant to establishing intent and pattern. Finally, Christie took the stand. She described her marriage to Howard, how he'd gradually isolated her from friends, from family, from Damien, how he'd started controlling her medications, her finances, her daily activities, how she tried to resist and been punished, verbally abused, sometimes physically restrained, locked in rooms until she calmed down. Did you ever tell anyone? Wilkins asked. I tried to tell Damien, but Howard monitored my phone. He'd delete messages, block calls. I felt like I was going crazy, like maybe I was imagining things. That's what Howard wanted. He wanted me to doubt my own mind. What happened in the days before Christmas? Christie's voice grew stronger. Howard told me they were going on a cruise. I asked if I was coming. He laughed, said I needed to reflect on my behavior in the basement. I tried to leave, but Kirk blocked the door. They forced me downstairs. The door locked. It was dark. I screamed until my voice gave out. What did you think would happen? I thought I would die down there. I thought that was Howard's plan. And I thought about my son, about how he'd come home to find me dead, and Howard would tell him some lie about how I'd had a breakdown, how it was an accident, how they'd try to help. Christie looked at Howard, who wouldn't meet her eyes. But I was wrong. I didn't die. And Damien came home. And now everyone knows the truth about what you are. Chapter 8. The Verdict. The jury deliberated for less than 4 hours. Guilty on all counts. Howard Harrell sat motionless as the verdict was read, his face ashen. Kirk Fry, who'd already pled guilty to reduced charges, watched from the gallery. Patty Harrell, testifying for the prosecution in exchange for probation, didn't attend. The judge set sentencing for 2 weeks later, but her comments suggested Howard was facing significant time. The evidence presented shows a systematic, calculated campaign of abuse and exploitation, she said. The defendant targeted a vulnerable woman, manipulated his family into participating in his crimes, and showed no remorse. The court will take this into consideration at sentencing. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed. Damien made a brief statement. My mother survived because she's stronger than Howard Harrell ever imagined. He thought he could break her, steal from her, discard her. He was wrong. This verdict is for her, and for every person who's been victimized by someone they trusted. Thank you. But the legal case was just part of the story. The civil suits had progressed in parallel. Damien's lawyers had successfully frozen all of Howard's assets, his business accounts, his personal property, even the cruise ship refund. They traced the stolen money through the offshore accounts and recovered most of it. They filed liens against Kirk's house, Patty's business, everything. The financial damage is about $1.2 million. Opal Hayden told Damien in her office. Between your mother's stolen savings, medical bills, the house equity they tried to steal, and the pension money they diverted, we can recover most of it, plus punitive damages. What's the total claim? $5 million. The judge will decide, but based on the criminal verdict, I think we'll get close to that. And Howard will be bankrupt. We're also going after his business's assets. Turns out he did this to at least 4 other clients. They're joining our lawsuit. By the time we're done, Howard Harrell won't own a toothbrush. Damien nodded. Good. What about Kirk? His plea deal saved him from the worst charges, but he's still looking at 3 to 5 years. And he'll lose his house in the civil suit. His wife filed for divorce. She's claiming she didn't know, though I'm skeptical. Either way, Kirk's life is over. Patty, probation, community service, and financial restitution. She's cooperating fully, which helped her avoid prison. But her business is gone. She'll spend years paying back what she stole. 2 weeks later, the sentencing hearing arrived. Damien and his mother sat together as the judge delivered Howard's sentence. 25 years in state prison for the abuse and exploitation of Christy Davis. An additional 5 years for the financial crimes. The sentences will run consecutively, not concurrently. 30 years. Howard was 62. He'd die in prison. The judge continued. The defendant showed extraordinary cruelty to a woman who trusted him. He enlisted his family in crimes that could have ended in her death. He showed no remorse and attempted to blame the victim for his actions. This sentence reflects the severity of those crimes and ensures the defendant will never harm anyone again. Howard was led away in handcuffs. For just a moment, he looked back at Damien with pure hatred. Damien stared back, expressionless, until Howard was gone. Chapter 9. Aftermath. 6 months later, Damien stood in his mother's kitchen, the same kitchen where he'd found the note, where this had all started, and watched her make coffee. Christy Davis was fully recovered now. She'd sold the house, too many bad memories, and bought a small cottage near the coast. She'd reconnected with old friends Howard had driven away. She'd started volunteering at an elder advocacy organization, helping other abuse victims navigate the legal system. She was happy. Really, genuinely happy, in a way Damien hadn't seen in years. Stop staring, she said, smiling at him. I'm fine. I know. Just making sure. Howard's in prison. Kirk's in prison. The money's back. I'm safe. She poured 2 cups. You did good, sweetheart. We did good. You testified. You fought back. Because you taught me I could. She sat across from him. I thought I was weak. Howard made me think that. But you showed me I was wrong. That fighting back was possible. That I deserved better. Damien's phone buzzed. A text from Detective Rivers. FYI. Got confirmation. They're reopening the investigation into Gertrude Harrell's death based on new evidence. Howard's going to face additional charges. Might not matter given his current sentence, but wanted you to know. Justice for Gertrude too, even 20 years late. What will you do now? Christy asked. Go back to Germany? Actually, I'm transferring stateside. Fort Bragg. Army intelligence wants me for a training position. He smiled. Means I'll be a few hours away instead of an ocean away. Good. I'm not done needing you yet. They sat in comfortable silence, drinking coffee, watching the morning sun. Outside, the world continued. Howard rotted in a cell. Kirk's service time. Patty tried to rebuild a life from ruins. But here, in this kitchen, there was peace. Jana had reached out once, a long email apologizing for everything, explaining that she was in therapy, working through her guilt, trying to become a better person. Damien had written back. You made a choice. Now you live with it. But you also made a better choice when it mattered. Remember that. Keep choosing better. She'd responded with a simple, I will. Maybe she would. Maybe Kirk would learn something in prison. Maybe Patty would find redemption in her community service. But Damien didn't really care about their redemption. He cared that his mother was safe. That justice had been served. That Howard would never hurt anyone again. You know what the best part is? Christy said suddenly. What? Howard thought he'd won. All the way up until you came home. He thought his plan was perfect. He thought I was broken. That you were too far away to help. That he was too smart to be caught. She smiled. He underestimated both of us. Big mistake. The biggest. She raised her coffee cup. To mistakes. Damien clinked his cup against hers. To people who make them pay for those mistakes. They drank, and the morning sun spilled across the kitchen table, warm and bright and clean. Outside, somewhere, Howard Harrell sat in a cell, understanding for the first time in his life that some people don't break, that some families don't abandon their own, that some sons come home when they're needed, and that when they do, they bring justice with them. And there you have it. Another story comes to an end. What did you think? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoy this story, consider joining our community by subscribing. It means the world to us. For more stories like this one, check out the recommended videos on screen, and I'll see you there.